everybody to Connecting with Jennifer Filzen. Today I have a very, very special guest, Carolyn. Now, I've often butchered Carolyn's last name. I want to say Coquillette, but I think I get that wrong every damn time. And she's very famous.
You just gotta stamp it down. No inflection. It's just Coquillette. You just totally bastardize it.
Coquillette, excellent.
Yep, bingo.
Same thing as Filzen. In the proper German pronunciation, it's Filzen. But like,
Mhm.
we Americanize that stuff.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so much about you that I absolutely love and adore.
Oh, thank you.
Carolyn is part of the auto repair industry. That is how I've gotten to know this dynamo. I want to be her when I grow up. So,
Mm,
so she is a shop owner, auto repair shop owner, a very, very amazing automotive technician in her own right. So she's not just the owner; she like actually does it. She also is the inventor, founder of Shop-Ware, which is a CRM system. Is it just CRM or is it
no,
dynamic?
it's shop management software. It doesn't. We partner with a lot of different folks for traditional CRM, but yeah, it's a shop management system.
Got it. Okay, so
Mhm.
she developed that and founded that, and it's a really great program that's like sweeping the industry.
Thank you very
Congratulations on
much.
that. I'll never
Thank
forget
you.
when AC Guarino went up to visit you after visiting us here in Monterey. And he's like, "I'm going to go see Carolyn. I'm going to go see her thing. Jen, look at this. Look at this software. It's so good." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It really is."
AC is so great. I love that
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, I love him. And then,
Hmm.
yeah, invite him back out so he can go golfing again in Pebble Beach.
Definitely.
And then you also are the incoming president of the ASCCA, which is
Hmm.
again not something for the person who doesn't have time. So like, I don't know how you do it. So let's take it back to when you were born. What made you the amazing human being that you are, and how did you go from 0 to 120 in the 6 seconds that you have of your lifetime?
Right. Well, you're very flattering, and I appreciate all the enthusiasm because when you're busy building your business and dreaming, living your dreams, it's nice to hear from others that you're making an impact. So thank you so much for A, the invitation, and B, all the kind words. But um, the question that you've been asking everyone is what makes you who you are, right? Is that the sort of the
Yeah,
exact frame?
however you want to answer it. And by the way, there are no wrong answers. That's the beauty of the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's a really great format too. I mean, I like it. I don't know that anyone's really asked me that question. So this is a really exciting, it's kind of an interesting opportunity. Um, I think the one thread that has sort of followed me through the different stages of the career has been to do kind of the real work, the real thing, like the
Mhm.
non-synthetic, tangible help that you can offer people. And like, for example, before I got into fixing cars, I was in nonprofit work. And
I
that
didn't know
was
that.
obviously to try and help people. This was like early, like right out of college. And I had done work throughout sort of college as well. So it was not just something that I picked up directly after graduation, but I was working in Detroit and I was trying to kind of find my place. And there wasn't really the right, I wasn't, there wasn't like a puzzle that my puzzle piece fit into. But when I went to work for one of my instructors from the community college, which is how I got into it, the um, the fact that you could help people in a non-political environment generally on a daily basis, the car comes in broken, it leaves fixed, ideally. Right, you push it in and drive it out. That's the ideal case. That really felt meaningful, like meaningful in an unusual way from like my peers who were all generally going into sort of traditional professional paths and then ultimately, creating a different kind of repair shop, working on a different type of car that was really leading a change as far as powertrain technology. and lowering emissions, and just like admitting that there was something wrong with the car. That was kind of the, I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when hybrids first came out, there was this sort of like um, aversion to them, not because they weren't cool. It was because it was like they were admitting that there was something wrong with the regular car. And a lot of people weren't really willing to admit that there was anything that had to change. So that was sort of that had like substance and meaning for me. And then obviously acknowledging that there has been a huge lack of innovation delivered to shop operators, and that we're the ones that perform miracles every single day, and largely the aftermarket has just sort of taken us for granted. Wanting to address that head on and provide innovation to folks, and kind of do the hard thing. That was sort of what's taken me most recently. Now, fast forward to the current day, I haven't started working as president of ASCCA, but I will be shortly. And I've obviously gotten involved more and more as I've moved up kind of the leadership, and talk about an area that is really, a hard thing that the industry has to figure out. That's, association business, and all associations are struggling with this. So figuring out how to bring the industry together, and figure out how to leverage our power to make sure that our interests are protected and maintained, is taking it to a whole nother level. Like, it's above the individual operator, and now it's across larger groups of operators. And I've been talking to my good friend, Fred Hewells. He's actually in my 20 group. He is currently the acting chairman of ASA. Had a chance to talk to him a few weeks ago at our 20 group meeting. And it's so exciting to have someone who is a good friend, effectively trying to fix that same problem over on the national side. And obviously, anyone who's been in the business understands how difficult it's been in positions and in the association business. I mean, even trying to get people to show up for training has become harder and harder to do, because we're all just so fragmented and busy trying to just make money. So figuring out how to make the time for these larger efforts, the longer term kind of investments, is so that's how I would kind of tie it together. And so what does that say about me? I mean, I just
You're
um,
really good at herding cats, is what
yeah,
you're.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Hybrid owners are kind of like cats, but there's something particularly substantive about fixing cars, right? Like, it's real work. And
Yeah.
I think that you take that and you just follow it through the entire industry, and you find more and more substance. And most of the people that you talk to, they came from the service bay, right? And they moved into parts manufacturing or training or whatever. There's all sorts of different walks of life inside of the aftermarket. And it's amazing how many of those people got into it because they loved fixing cars, because cars are such a hard nut to crack, right? It's a particular person who can fix a car.
Yeah. Yeah. And truly, I mean, especially with the technology that's going on now in cars, it's so advanced. Gone are
Mm-hmm.
the days of the traditional grease monkey stereotype
Mm-hmm.
of a wrench turner. No, 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 no. You're really dealing with a computer network on wheels.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just the diagnostics, how you have to be a master in the oscilloscope reading, the uh, the updates with whatever's going on with the technology. You have to be familiar with the mechanical as well as the theoretical math. Like, there's just so much going on, and it's like the technicians of today working on automobiles should be just as revered and respected as physicians of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much mastery that is going on, and people don't understand. Oh, well, my car isn't working. Well, there's so much there, right? And like you said, you're right. There is something very substantive about repairing a car, because you're using your talents to make the world a better place, one car repair at a time, because people so rely on their vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they have their vehicle, then they can go out in the world and do what they do best, making
Mm-hmm.
the world a better place. So you really are creating a beautiful ripple effect
Mm-hmm.
with what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hats off to you, truly.
Thank you. Yeah, well, all the professionals, right? And you're, supporting that as well, right? You're making these people shine, allowing them to find their future customers, allowing them to look great for their existing customers. I mean, we're all telling the same story.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so
Hmm.
much fun. And you're right, though. There is a lot of, it's a highly competitive commodities market, right? Because oftentimes auto repair shops look so similar. They have the same colors, the same logos, the same type of, there's a reason why we fit into a certain stereotype, right? But yet everybody has their own voice. Like, okay, like for you, tell us how you got into repairing cars, going from nonprofit. I did not know that about you. Nonprofit to working on vehicles and being a pioneer in the industry. I mean, how many women were working in the industry when you started? There are a lot more now, and it's still a small number, right?
And yeah, I don't know. There may not be more female techs. I honestly don't know, but it is a infinitesimal trace. The work was just very resonant in the sense that you're helping people, and in the non-political part is really important, right? Like the car is either fixed or it's not. It's science, not religion. Even though there's always political dynamics, and as soon as the shop goes from one person to two, there's politics. But the large, the overarching aspect is like either the car is fixed or it's not. And behind that repair is someone who depends on that car. So that makes you feel really good. And the demystification, right, of understanding how you can actually leverage the technology and your skills to make those repairs as opposed to, working in community building. Like that's much harder to do, right? Like that's more on like the software side of things. Like I like to joke, back in the day I used to do work multiple times a day, deliver the work to the customer, they would pay me for it and they would thank me for it. And software, it's like I've been working on this project for 8 years and all I hear about is all the additional stuff that people want, right? There's the thank yous are few and far between. So like fixing a car is a lot more kind of rewarding, if you will, on like a regular and on a recurring basis than these larger projects. Like building a business, right? You know all about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You wonder, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Is this finally turn a damn corner? Yeah. Right. I did not know you had been working on Shopware for 8 years because
Yeah.
you hit it pretty strong, like what, 2, 3 years ago? Am I right? Like,
Yeah, we went out to
boom.
market. Yeah, we went out to market kind of in earnest in 2016, Vision 2016.
Ah, okay.
And then we actually our first trade show was Vision 2015, and then we learned a whole bunch, and then came back around and sort of went to market in 2016. So it's been about 5 years out to market. We've had several sort of substantive partnerships since then, and building our network. Um, but this industry is slow to change. There's a lot of people who, when I first started, they said that like when they saw me coming, they would like have like a nervous reaction because it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to change my shop management system. And like I really don't want to. Like, I really don't want to even think about it. Whenever I see you, I'm starting to have like an allergy. And I'm like, you have to switch right away. I'm here to help whenever you're ready. But now there's enough action in the market that everyone's sort of recognizing, all right, yes, the world has changed. I need to change with it. And, um, that's not uncommon when you read books about, market shifts. It's not until you have kind of company that people start to see that this thing is happening writ large. When it's just you out there saying the future's arrived, everyone's like, no, 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 it hasn't yet. I don't believe you, blah, blah. So we have a chorus of folks talking about new shop management platforms now, which I think is really a good thing for the industry on the whole.
Yeah, and let's unpack this for a bit. Yes, so you came to market in 2016, but I think it was 2020, 2019, 2020 that you suddenly were like everywhere. So again, you had to get that momentum, right? Before
Well,
you were truly seen everywhere.
Well, Roxanne Doche does deserve some of that because we hired her as our first marketing director at the end of 2019, and you know her; she is phenomenal. So, like,
Ah,
she deserves a lot of the credit for us suddenly appearing everywhere because before her, we didn't really have a legitimate marketing effort, and I'm not a marketer I'm an auto mechanic. As you know, auto mechanics tend to not be very good marketers. That's why they need help.
Uh, I would disagree with you. I would disagree with you. Well,
Oh,
maybe if
you're being nice.
let's just put it this way, you're a master networker. And with
Yeah, I
that
kind of like
comes
this
a
too.
little bit of marketing that you may not realize, but it's in you. You got it. Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
okay, so then, all right, so you go through your trajectory and you've got this shop software. And I loved how you said, oh God, I'm nervous you're coming around because you're right. I got the same reaction when the future is here. It's called social media marketing. And this is 12 years ago. Would you believe Rockstar Marketing's been around for 12 years as of October 2009, 2020,
Congratulations. Are you just
2009?
celebrating your birthday?
Yeah, we're celebrating a birthday this month. It's like,
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
you, I know. But like yeah, I remembered, I would be like, hey, the yellow pages and the newspaper ads that you're running, they're not going to be around for much longer. It's the social media thing. And I had people going, oh no, this social
Right.
media thing is a fad. Well,
Mhm,
now we know the punchline, right?
mhm.
So it's going to be fat. And you were an early adopter of repairing the hybrids, and you were bringing up something earlier, like, oh, remember way back when? That was even before I got into the auto repair industry. Like hybrids, when did hybrids really first come out? The beginning of the 21st century, like early
Yeah.
2000s?
Yeah. So the Toyota Prius was first sold in Australia in 1997. But that was really like a mule car. It wasn't ready for prime time. And then Honda launched in the United States first with the 2000 model year. So Honda's was 2000,
That's right.
Toyota's
I
was in
forgot that Honda
2001.
beat them to market, and now
Mhm,
Toyota just dominates. Boy,
mhm. Yeah.
who would have
Yeah, it's one of those like VHS versus beta kind of moments where they took different approaches, and Toyota went farther, but they ended up pulling it off. And kudos to them, right? They owned it, and we see Tesla basically, following that exact same playbook now with the innovations that they've been able to bring on the EV side. So kudos to them. They get the market share.
Yeah, and good for them. Good for them. So you were a pioneer in hybrids. Are you also a pioneer in EV?
I mean, we're getting into it now. I mean, we've always had some level of EV involvement. Like when we first opened, this is of course before I had any business, we hosted the San Francisco Electric Vehicle Association, which is now the Golden Gate Electric Vehicle Association. And so those folks used to come on a monthly basis. And back then, there was a lot of like, who killed the electric car, like,
I remember
or,
that movie.
EV1, RAV4 EVs, and
Mhm.
those weren't really mainstream cars, but they ended up getting really heavy in the conversion and plug-in conversion market. So we would convert. We never really converted internally combusted cars to all electrics. We would repair cars that had been converted to all electrics, and then we did some work on these like very short run EVs that were produced by OEs, but we mostly did hybrid plug-in conversion. So we'd take a Prius and turn it into a plug-in Prius, so you could drive it on all electric, and that was like a big component of our early days when hybrids really didn't need anything, right? Of course, like that would be the work that we could actually find was we effectively took a perfectly good Prius and broke it. Um, but you could drive it, you could drive it all electric, which was great. Um, the funny part, and you started your business in 2009. The funny part is that we then rode the downturn from late 2008 through 2009, and that was a really difficult time for what we were doing because the cars were still really early.
Hmm.
And they hadn't really started to break. And of course, no one wanted to break a perfectly good car for money once they were strapped for cash. So the plug-in conversion market disappeared like that.
Oh, I never
But
thought about that, but you're right. That
yes,
would be
interesting
drying
time.
up.
But we ended up getting into taxi cabs. So taxis ended up becoming mostly hybrid around that same time. And then that ended up, we kind of followed that into having a night shift for taxi cabs. And it's just been very interesting. Like a lot of this stuff has been a rehearsal for sort of the broader industry trends that we're seeing. So like we look at hybrids and we think, okay, well, how do hybrids break? Like obviously the cost of ownership is much lower than a traditional car, which is why they're taxi cabs, right? Like they wouldn't be taxi cabs if they weren't the cheapest car to own.
Oh,
And
good
it's
point. I never thought about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not because they're green, right? It's because they're cheap, and that's why anyone drives those cars, right? That's the secret. They're not environmentalists; they're just cheap. It just happens to be that if you're cheap, you're also consuming less resources, which makes you somewhat green. Anyway, so the taxi guys have a um, line on where we see ownership trends going as far as like larger fleets. If you want to talk about the original self-driving car, it's a taxi cab, right? So like we see how these kinds of dynamics and how you're going to work on those types of cars will play out, and how you run potentially second shifts. How do you make money on cars that don't normally break? Like we've had a lot of experience in this over the years and figuring out how to adapt to that. So we're now looking towards what are legitimately mainstream electric vehicles. So we currently service Leafs and Fiats and certainly Teslas, and getting more and more on the other dedicated EVs that are starting to come out. Those are the ones that we tend to see. We haven't seen a lot of BMW i3s, some Bolts, but Bolts are a little bit younger. But like Tesla's, Leafs, and Fiat E's are the ones that we've seen more frequently in our shop. And we're going to start driving in that direction because Prius is sort of no longer really special, where EVs are kind of newly special again, and so we can and
Mhm.
kind of adapt our brand towards that new vanguard of vehicles, which is where we like to be. Something that's new, it's exciting, it's um, environmentally forward thinking. So trying to really kind of lead the charge on that side and help um, demystify how you can work on those cars, not just at my shop, but anywhere. A lot of these cars, generally when they're new, they end up feeling like they have to go back to the dealership because there isn't, mainstream industry expertise on how to deal with them. And
Right.
by nature of there not being competition, the owners of those cars get taken advantage of. And like it's your fault that you bought this really, advanced car. Um, at least that tends to be the feeling in manufacturers that make all, like if you go into a, I don't know, Fiat dealership, my guess is
Maserati.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Maserati. Yeah. Super expensive to own a Maserati because, right? Yeah.
but I mean, it's like, so for example, at the Toyota dealer, if you owned a Prius back in the day, like look out, you were going to get sold, you know, everything under the sun. Versus if you were a regular Toyota owner, they were like, oh, the car's familiar, we know how to fix it, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
The way that has worked out for electrics is that Tesla obviously completely owns the technology that they've delivered, and it's all electric. So when you go to Tesla, they actually have a very different um, message to their customers. They actually tell you that you're not going to have to do any maintenance at all on your Tesla. Your Tesla will require zero maintenance, which of course it doesn't. It does need maintenance. It needs tires. It needs wiper blades. It needs door handles. It needs centered stack displays. There's all kinds of stuff that breaks on that car. They don't want to tell you that. They want to tell you it's going to be completely maintenance free. So, they're actually going the opposite direction in terms of the way that they're supporting their customers. Either way, it's fascinating to see how um, shops are going to be able to break into that market because we already see how owners of Teslas are not getting very good service, and that we obviously want to be able to tackle that market if that's where the market's going inside of the aftermarket. So that's sort of my passion, is to start to dig into those frontiers where folks have less exposure to the technology, and then being able to bring that information forward to other folks across the country that want to work on them. So that's kind of um, our
Amazing.
current take on the repair side.
There are so many things to unpack here. There's first off, I'm just going to say them all so I can get them out of my head so I can
Yeah.
remember. First one
Sorry,
is
I
I'm
was
dying.
monologuing there, Jennifer. Forgive
No,
me. I
no, no,
monologued for a minute.
it's so good. I love you. I love it. I love it. My first question I want to ask is, what do you drive? Like, I'm dying to know. Like, are you an early adopter? Are you still driving an internal combustion engine? Like, what are
Well,
you
I
driving?
do have an internally combusted car. It's a Prius. They do burn gas.
Ah,
It was converted like 4 times. So it used to have a all electric option, but that's gone the way of the dodo. So it's just a regular Prius. But I was thinking, I when General Motors made their announcement that they were going to go all electric by, I think it was 2035, I was so inspired. And granted, they're kind of late to the party. I mean, there's all sorts of other, skeletons in their closet. So I'm not suggesting that they're innocent, but I really thought that required a lot of leadership on their part. And so I wanted to go like walk into a dealership and like buy a Bolt to just like vote with my money and say, good job.
Yeah.
Um, but then I realized like, what I probably need to buy is like a used Tesla so I can start tearing it apart and doing blogs and other kinds of stuff on it. So I backed up. So right now we're currently sourcing a high mileage Tesla Model 3
Uh-huh.
because Tesla just came out with their aftermarket version of their scan tool, and you can access their service and parts information. So you can get service information, you can get parts. There's some hoops you have to jump through, but anyway, we're going to get a car that tool works with, and then we're continuing to try and figure out how to get access to information for the Model S, which is the one that's actually starting to age out and come out of warranty. So we kind
Nice.
of have to balance the cars that are breaking versus the cars that you can have scan tool access.
Got it.
But anyway, we're going to start to peel that onion. So I'll be able to drive a Tesla here pretty soon, and then you're going to say, "Oh, what a sacrifice that you're making, Carolyn." Yes, you just had to go get that Tesla.
Hold up,
Little
hold up.
woman.
The infrastructure has not quite caught up, right? Like we've got, I don't really know where we are in legislation, but the infrastructure bill is supposed to be in
Mhm,
negotiation or soon to be passing. I don't even know where it's at right now, but there is the discussion of, okay, if I want to drive my Tesla or my EV across country, where the hell am I going to refuel, recharge, So, so we still have a lot of catching up to do in that. So
mhm.
yes, the sacrifice that you're making, because you can only go so far. Um,
Right.
what are your thoughts on where we're at as far as the ability to support? Because you're absolutely right. The Model S3, I can't remember which one,
There's many.
coming
There's
out of
several.
warranty. Yeah.
The S is coming out of warranty. I mean, the 3 has a shorter warranty, so the 3 is also coming out of warranty, and there's a typical mileage and time component. So if you drive your 3 a bunch, you may be out of warranty already. But the S are the ones that are like definitely those original vehicles are now like officially leaving sort of the mothership.
Got it. So what do you advice or what do you think the future holds for the
You're
people
saying
who
in terms of like charging, or
Hmm.
you mean for charging access or something else?
Yeah, just the whole network of support. Like, you got to fix these things, you got to fuel these things, you got to replace the battery. And then, I mean, they really have a short leash. You have a short leash with an electrical vehicle at this moment in time. And I know I'm
Mhm.
asking like kind of open-ended big questions. So you can answer them as big or as small as you want based on your knowledge, but you've got a lot more knowledge than most friends that I have. So I figured I'd ask you, how long is it before we comfortably just cruised on I-10 all the way from LA to Jacksonville, Florida, all
Mhm.
through that damn Texas state, like,
Mhm. Mhm.
how are we going to even
Well,
have
it's a
that
really good question. Yeah.
infrastructure in Texas?
I think it was like, what was that movie? I think it was called Horatio's Drive. Anyway, it's about sort of the first time that this maniac car enthusiast in San Francisco decided he was going to drive his like Model T to Chicago, and there were like no roads and no service, and like he would drive through towns that like had never seen an automobile before, and people were like freaking out about like what the heck was it. So like we're kind of reliving that with a new drivetrain infrastructure, fueling infrastructure. That being said, like a lot of people are like, well, it's gonna bring down our grid, or you know, blah blah blah. We're not going to be able to figure it out. And the reality is that utility companies are very much looking forward to selling you electricity to fuel your car. Like there is no lack of willingness within industry to give you that energy. And if anything, this is really a you know pu- uh, electric utility versus traditional petroleum um, fuel suppliers kind of uh, duking it out.
Right.
Um, because obviously energy companies love to make money and they will continue to make money just making different energy. The second argument against is and just to put a footnote on that, like we kind of went through that with flat screen TVs. There's this whole story about how when flat screen TVs started coming out, everyone was buying them, and they had to like, add all of this um, infrastructure to residential housing so that they could support flat screen TVs. Not surprisingly, they were very excited for you to buy a flat screen TV so they could sell you more electricity, right? Like there was no resistance from those utility providers to do so, and so they will do that additionally to be able to support this network as it matures. The other argument is that electric vehicles consume a lot of energy, and that is true. They do conserve energy. They consume energy. They are more efficient than internally combusted cars significantly, but you do have to make a battery, and making a battery consumes a lot of resources on its own. So the technology on board the car, they had this whole thing where the Hummer is greener than a Prius, and it does take you time to win back the energy that went into making the car by owning the car for a longer period of time. So presumably the car lasts longer and requires less maintenance. The other argument is that the electric grid is fueled by coal-powered plants, and
Right.
so now we basically just have coal-powered cars, and instead of tailpipe emissions that are cleaner to breathe. Still not great on carbon dioxide, but coal-powered plants also make carbon dioxide. So it's kind of like, all right, we're still contributing to global warming. The reality is that um, we don't have like a mini coal-powered plant under the hood of the car. And so we can basically move the energy generation from under the hood to a stationary source. And when you move energy generation to a stationary source, you suddenly have flexibility about where that energy comes from, right? Because you could have solar as your stationary source, or wind, or nuclear, or whatever. And so, by nature of it not having to be solved under the hood of the vehicle, now suddenly you can solve where the fuel is going to come from separately, and the car is just like energy agnostic. So that's the argument around like coal powered electric vehicles. But even when you add all of that stuff, if you're still better off with electrics than you are with internally combusted vehicles, the issue is just that there's not as much infrastructure. And when you
But
make
it's
a cross
coming.
country trip, you might
It's,
choose to drive your Prius, but like most of the time you're going to just charge it in your garage, and you're going to be in good shape.
yeah. And it's going to generate a whole bunch of new industries we don't even know about yet,
Well,
right?
they do break. I mean, so we've hired a couple people out of Tesla at my repair shop to sort of start to figure out how we're going to make this transition. And you talk to them and they go, "Oh, those cars break like hell. There's no problem. Like they go through tires, they need alignments constantly. There's stuff on them that breaks. Um, Windshields. What is the other thing? So like glass. I'm blanking. Anyway, there's a ton of
Well,
stuff to
even
do."
just auto body. I mean, fender benders still happen in a Tesla.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people
For a
don't
while,
want them to
I don't even
be.
think I don't even think auto repair or sorry, auto body shops were allowed to touch them for a while. I know that one shop that I work with locally here in Monterey, CarStar Roberts Collision, they weren't able to for a while touch a
Mhm.
Tesla.
They have some certification. There's some other backstory around Tesla and
Oh, is that
collision
it?
shops, which is really interesting. But we've spent a lot of time talking about Tesla. Anyway, yes, there's a lot going on. It's exciting, and it is a problem that needs to be solved. But
Yeah.
we'll solve it. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
That is so cool. That's what I love about you. There is no problem you can't solve. So, all right, you have a lot going on. Like you are most people can only handle like two major things, but you've got three major things: a shop, software program, and being president of a statewide organization that is tied in with national. I mean, huge stuff. So I think I know the answer, but I'm going to be surprised with what your answers really are. But who do you serve in your life? There's multiple layers of who we serve in our lives. There's the really inner circle that are
Mm.
closest to us. Then there's, our circle of friends. There's our associations and work and such. And then there's the larger, what kind of service are you providing to whom, and what is the legacy that you see yourself leaving?
I mean, I'm most, excuse me, I am most passionate about the people who do the work every day. Um, and that is primarily the technician. So, the work that we get paid for is actually fixing the car, not ordering the parts, not answering the phone, whatever. It's fixing the car. That's what people pay for. So, I respect those folks a ton. And honestly, a lot of our business is not structured to really support those folks. And so it's been fun talking to, educators and just how we're going to solve the technician problem, which is not actually an area I've been spending a lot of time. If anything, my contribution to that is giving shops better software so that they can provide more value to their customers, so that they can raise their labor rate and they can pay their employees more. Like that's that one piece. How you actually fix the car is, fortunately, I just fix the cars that come into my shop. I don't have to fix the cars that come into your shop, thank God, because fixing cars is actually the hard work.
Right.
So technicians, I'm very passionate about, and especially as the car, as you mentioned, gets more complicated, those folks are required to do ever more, um, and they're really under appreciated. Second to that is obviously the shop owners themselves are totally underappreciated. So, I respect and serve those folks um, as well. And I think that's ASA work, right? Both of those folks are effectively getting regulated by Sacramento and figuring out how to make sure that their interests are considered at the BAR and by legislature in California is appropriate there. I have actually moved to Seattle. My partner matched for her residency here. She's in the medical industry, so I don't actually think that fixing cars is as hard as fixing people. But the joke is, that they only have two models that they have to work on. So,
Oh,
haha.
that's awesome. I love it. You two have a little ribbing going on, like, oh, my day was harder. No, 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 my day was harder. Yeah, but I couldn't get parts for mine.
Right, exactly.
And how
um,
are you adjusting? I know we're going off on a side note. How are you missing San Francisco? Are you loving
oh
Seattle?
yeah,
Both cities are fantastic in their own respect. So
and they're similar. They have similar culture, a lot of tech, a lot of young people, progressive, like beautiful. All that stuff is the same, vibrant scene. So, really enjoying being here. But I'm sort of now like truly operating those businesses remote. Like I'm standing in a home office. This is ridiculous. Like usually I would be standing, having this meeting with you somewhere on campus at Luscious Garage. So
right.
it's very awkward to sort of be operating, strictly on sort of like a plugging into the matrix, staring at the computer screen kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Little talking head. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, more of
But
that, more
also
of
a
that.
testament to how your standard operating procedures and your processes are running smoothly because you can do this. I mean, can you imagine if you had tried doing this 10 years ago?
Yeah, we certainly weren't ready.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm proud of you. I'm really
Thank
proud of
you. Well, whenever it's not to keep turning it around, but whenever I get an opportunity to chat with someone who's doing this on a regular basis, you're very often interviewing others. I turned the tables on Carm on the last time that I was on his podcast, and he hasn't invited me back yet, so he might be mad
you.
at me about
Yeah,
that.
I know. He didn't want to do my interview either. I scared the crap out of him. Yeah, because he's used to being. Oh, but you can ask me anything. I'm an open book. Go for it.
He wants to be in charge.
Yeah,
Um, but Yeah, I guess that does that answer the question of who I serve, and then I think my question to you would be like, What's super motivating for you these days? I mean, it is, especially during COVID. I mean, that was really, really hard on the marketing front.
Wow, yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I came up with my newest book during COVID. So,
Nice.
yeah, so I actually needed COVID to give birth to this thing.
Huh.
And I wrote it in 42 days. And
Wow.
I'm actually just as you were like logging in, I'm working on the Audible version of this book, The Gift
Huh.
to Get People. So I'm doing I'm learning a lot about video and audio production and as I go through these things. But I'd say I am super proud of the auto repair industry.
Mm,
It's an essential business.
mhm,
We realized how essential it really is. I mean, I'm not saying that it's more or less essential than anybody else. I mean, it's just that the collective, when you look at the collective, we all really are a network of people that do need to rely on each other.
mhm,
And I often talk, in fact, I just wrote a blog about it. I talk about the four currencies. There's
mm,
money, there's time, there's knowledge, and there's relationships. And
mm,
my argument is that the relationships, hands down, the most important currency that of all four. Because we often talk about money as a culture, we focus on money a lot, but really, when the crap has hit the fan, what do you rely upon? It's your friends, it's your family, it's the people that you love and care for that care for you that will pull you through it. And they're often going to introduce you to that next job, or which is more money, or they're going to help you out by running to the store for you. Just this weekend, we were seeing a very dear friend of ours who dances with us, who's battling pancreatic cancer, and he is in hospice in his home. And he has beautiful bone structure that I've never quite seen before because he's now so gaunt. And
yeah.
we brought him pizza and we brought him his favorite things, and he was super appreciative. And I was just so happy to just talk to him and make him smile. So like, I think that the relationships are super important. And so I love our industry, and
Yeah.
I love the people within our industry because, as you said, they are salt of the earth, problem solvers, underappreciated, hearts of gold, servant leaders, bust tail.
Hmm.
Do you know, Carolyn, I can't even open up the hood to my Mini Cooper Countryman. The latch is just too tricky for
You
me.
can. You can. You can.
I can write about brake repair and minis all day long, but don't ask me to fix the damn thing. Like, we all need each other, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And I often tell the shop owners, I'm your best client. That's why I'm your best marketer, because I am your target demographic. I just want to hand you the keys and say, here, just fix it. Just
Right.
tell me how much I owe you, and just do it. Like, okay, So I'm like, yeah, don't you want me to attract more of us? Because we really do right for the sisterhood.
Money, time. What was the
Not
third one?
money,
Knowledge.
time, knowledge,
Knowledge and relationships.
and those relationships will also bring you more knowledge. The mentoring, the networking, the education. There's just so much going on. So I would dare say that I am more impassioned and more emboldened because of COVID, that people really need to tell their story and show off their superpowers and show off, what makes them special and unique,
Yeah.
and what in their awesome attitudes. So that is a perfect segue, Miss Carolyn. All right, what is your why? Why do you get out of bed every day to do all these crazy things that you're doing?
So it gets back to this is I've done a little bit of why work. There's the work why and there's the personal why, right?
Yes, that's what I'm going after. Yes.
Yeah, and so for me, I am I feel very strongly about people taking like people being honest about themselves and their impact and like having being grounded on reality. Um, and that has to do with if you think about like how do we move through society, right? How do you operate as a person who is both, loving of yourself, but also loving of the others around you? And I think as a culture, the United States really struggles. It's a very individualist society. We miss sort of where we are as a community oftentimes. And having a informed perspective on your impacts, be they environmental, be they, what kind of technology are you using, and being realistic about what it takes to keep your car on the road. You know what I mean? Like I don't, it's partly like, how do you uh, take responsibility for your impacts on the environment, but also how do you take responsibility for the other people in the world on which you depend, like, for example, service providers, and not taking those people for granted, because it's in the consumer's best interest to minimize service providers, because then they can kind of like justify not having to pay them very much. Oh, you're just a knuckle dragging Neanderthal in my car, just plug the tool and it'll tell you what to do, kind of a thing.
Mm.
Understanding that cars are really complex, and actually a lot of our lives is very complex, and not taking that for granted. I feel like that is the difference between humans being able to like support each other and get through to the next kind of phase of our development as a species, or just imploding, which we are on the verge of doing on like 6 different levels. So it's like,
There's a lot
um,
going on. Yes.
yeah. So I'm very focused on kind of where that traction of reality, and that was what I was talking about earlier. So when I get into like why Luscious, why Shop-Ware, why fix cars, like, why even show up for work every day, it has to do with, really trying to provide that contribution that allows us to function realistically, as a human society. And I think there's examples of that, like meaningful examples of that. So like when we're recruiting talent, for example, that's one of the most
I'm
important
sorry,
things
when we talked what?
about recruiting talent,
Yes, yes.
bringing people into your business, which is like basically what my only as CEO of a software company is. Basically, it's just that you're trying to pull in the best and the brightest to work for you. Um, and when we're talking to those people, that idea that we are not a SaaS company, we're not a software company, we're a change agent for what's happening in
Mm,
this particular industry, and
mm.
understanding what that's all about, not just about the software and the tools that shops need today, but all the other ways that we plug into the industry and make the industry happen today, tomorrow, out into the future. And that gets people very excited, because they see that it's not just about whatever the interface on the screen, but all the ways that it impacts the user, and whatever environmental impacts of maintaining your vehicle. That's where it gets really meaningful and substantive. So, um, yeah, I don't even know how to summarize that, like that sort of grounded in reality kind of thing. But that's what really moves me.
Yeah. Well, I see that common thread that you mentioned earlier. You
Mhm.
really, you just have a servant leader's heart.
Thank
And
you.
and I see that you have community as a really big part of you. And then of course you have that wonderful, I'm so jealous of you, problem solving, no challenge I can't handle kind of brain. And so you really do bring the best of both worlds together.
What are you talking about? You just finished your second book. You can do whatever you want. You're already doing it.
I'm not the problem solver that you are.
You're,
If you take my little test on where my strengths are, creativity, very high. Problem
Mhm.
solving,
Yeah.
I have to rely on my other problem solvers in my life to
Well, it
I'll
is a community.
do anything, but
People people are like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know how to fix my car." I'm like, "Don't learn how to fix your car. Like, just bring it to me. It's fine. I'm
right.
not doing my own dental work. Like, no. Like,
You got
no.
a point there. You got a point there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm never going to. I hope. So please, just bring your car in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have the last question, and I
Okay.
just can't help it, but I wish I could have you for like another 2 hours, but I'll be
Well, you can
respectful.
invite me back. We could do this
You
again.
know, and that's a given. You're totally coming back. Okay.
Mhm.
So I so love and respect you on so many levels. And I
Thank
know
you. Thank
that
you.
I would love to show you off to all the young girls and women
Mm,
in the
mhm.
world. What advice do you have for the young people? Because you know what? We're not just going to keep it to one gender. You're an inspiration to everybody. What advice do you have for people coming up through the ranks of life who want to be the next Carolyn?
Well, thanks for asking the question. That's very flattering. Just in terms of like the auto industry, I mean, I think it's a great business. Anyone who's inside of it knows why it's a great business. That's why they're participating. Um, and I think that the reason why it's so, I was actually just talking to some folks at Wrenchway. They were doing um, like a technician career pathing blog, video blog kind of thing. And so I was chatting about this exact same thing, which is I think it's that same tendency of those people to like solve the problems and do the hard things is what also makes us like such a tremendous community of contributors and friends and people who are really down to earth, right? So
Mm.
it's a really great business. And there's so many things that you can do professionally now that are so synthetic and disconnected and kind of um, empty feeling. Like if you get to stare at a wall of code all day, like that's supposedly very glamorous, and it's
No,
not actually,
no,
you know. So
your
so
eyes start crossing. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it's not that we don't need people writing code. Obviously, we need a lot of people writing code, and it's hard to hire developers right now. So a very similar situation for companies as there is with auto repair. But the opportunity to do something meaningful and to work on, we have the second most complex technology that you'll ever touch is basically on your car. The most complicated technology is the one between your ears that doctors get to work on, but they don't understand. So it's like this is the best technology we have, and then the second best is what happens to be powering your car. Um, so it's really fascinating. I was at a lecture put on by this guy who is a professor of transportation slash automotive innovation. And I think it's not just automotive. I don't remember his name, but he's out of Stanford, and he was talking about how when he first got into it, auto was both stable and boring, and now it is incredibly exciting but very uncertain. Uh, so if you want to do something that's like super interesting and dynamic and changing all the time, like get into cars. And if you start by learning how they work, I mean that's going to be your best education on all the myriad technology that's involved. Like becoming an engineer is boring, right? Like you only get to learn how to make the one screw for the one, door handle versus getting to know the entire car. It's rolling applied physics. So and then you can learn business, you can learn um, manufacturing and distribution. I mean, there's just an endless amount of personal growth there. So I would encourage anyone who has an inkling to try it out. And then, our job as industry is to try and support those folks that are new entrants to the business and really get them to a journey level, unlike what we're doing now, which is largely turning over a lot of folks that are coming out of school.
Mm, mm. I have a feeling our future looks pretty darn bright.
I,
We just,
I think so.
I think so. I'm really, really excited. And when I meet the students that are enrolled in the technical schools,
Hmm.
they're just so excited about the
They're
future.
awesome. Hmm.
So I think what we're just seeing is the dynamic between the older seasoned mechanics who are looking at retirement and they're like, does this old dog want to learn new tricks? Not really. Time for me
Right.
to exit. And the young ones are like, move over, Rover.
So true. It's shop owners are doing that too. There's all these old shop owners who are like, oh, I don't want to do it. And you see all these young folks charging in. They're just like gobbling up shops and like opening more locations. And it's just like, ooh, goody, goody. This
I
is
know.
going to be the whole next wave. And those folks are kicking so much butt. I mean, they are impressing the socks off of customers. I mean, they are changing people's opinions of auto repair all
Yes.
over the place. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, we are seeing so many young shop owners who are killing it and making
Totally.
money. And I
Yep.
love, love, love how we're getting more women into it. And it's not just,
Hmm.
it's not just technician, it's not just
Yep.
service advisor, it's not just marketing. It's like, yeah, bring on the ladies,
Hmm.
bring on the feminine energy
Hmm.
that's going to connect with
Hmm.
the community and
Hmm.
create that trust. And
Hmm.
again, that transparency, there's just so much to be excited about. So, oh my gosh, we could go on and on and on. Okay, everybody, this is part one
You got it.
of our time with Carolyn. We will have another one because oh my gosh,
Can't wait.
we could ask the same damn questions and have a whole different conversation. That would be the fun part. But I do have to get running, and I know you do too. Before we go and before we say goodbye to everybody, I want to mention this to you. I don't know if I've told you. Switch Vehicles. Have you checked them out? They're based in Sebastopol, California. You know where that is, North Bay,
Hmm.
Sonoma County. We're going to be at SEMA. I'm helping them run the booth. Are you going to be at SEMA?
I will.
Let's hang out.
I will
Um,
definitely stop
they
by.
are essentially a little electric vehicle assembly curriculum for middle schoolers, high schools, vocational schoolers. And so essentially it's build an EV and then take it apart and build it again and take it apart. And by the way, I don't know if you have the time or desire, but we're actually looking for pit crew volunteers to help assemble this puppy.
Fun, interesting. Well, we have to knock calendars, see if there's an opportunity to swing by. Hmm.
I'll
Super
send you
exciting.
I'll send you an email after this to Peter Oliver, the owner of Switch Vehicles, who is recruiting talented help. And I just knew that you would love getting your hands on this because essentially it's a golf cart, but really cool. And you can do donuts in the parking lot with this thing.
And this is theswitchlab.com
Got it.
or theswitchvehicles.com.
Theswitchlab.com is their main website. And yes, we're doing the marketing for them. So
Ah, no wonder it's so good.
thank you. Stop, really. No.
Stop it some more.
I adore you. Oh my God. I'm so glad I saw you recently
Oh,
on the
thank you so
plane.
much. Thank you for
Thank
the
you,
invitation. This
American
is such a
Airlines,
pleasure.
for having us together. Or was it Alaska? I can't remember which one we were on.
It is
Anyway,
a lot.
everybody, thank you so much for watching Carolyn Coquillette. Did I say it right? Coquillette.
Got it.
See, it's just I wanna Frenchify it. Anyway, you are amazing. I
Yeah,
am
thank you.
totally
You too.
loving it. I need to get like you a superwoman cape to like go with your awesomeness,
Thank you.
with a big old C on the back. And we'll definitely connect and see if we can get together at SEMA. All
You
right.
got it.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody. Thank you
Bye,
so very
everybody.
much. Bye.